Hello my lovelies, and welcome back to part 2 of May 2024's Deck of the Month's Deck Strength versus Weakness series. Our featured deck of the month is my Pain to Gain deck. This is the Magical Dogs Tarot by Daniel and Mickey Mueller. Alright, just as a quick recap for those that may not have seen the first portion, but will be listed in the description box down below if you expand it. The strength of this deck is shadow work. The weakness of this deck is self-care. Alright, we're going to go through a couple decks that I've pulled, both indie and mass market, that pair perfectly with this deck, and there'll be more in the description box down below if you want to expand that. You can also double check my playlist for deck strength versus weakness, and then the perfect pair playlist and the anti-pair playlist if you're interested in previous months and want to catch up. Alright, our first perfect pair that is up is the Wisdom of Pooh Tarot. This is by Serafina and Angel Mesa. So this is a fairly new indie deck. I got the cute little tarot in a 10. So it's the original Winnie the Pooh. So it doesn't have Tigger in it because there was still copyright on Tigger at the time. And it does have additional cards, renaming of the suits. And as much as these are obviously different themes, I'd like to point out that when I say a deck pairs, I am not talking about the aesthetics. I am purely talking about the energy of the deck and how they correlate and coincide. Now, this is actually kind of interesting and kind of fun when it comes to the Wisdom of the Pooh Tarot, simply because it has the same strength, but also the same weakness as the Magical Dogs Tarot. So both have the strength of shadow work, and both have the weakness of self-care. Now, that does not mean that they say the exact same thing the exact same way. I don't have another deck that has the exact same job as this one. This is my Pain to Gain deck, simply because it will tell you what is on the other side of all the shadow work, what is to be had. Now, this deck functions differently, so it's interesting to watch them interact. And I do apologize for going through this rather quickly. I do have 4 indie decks and 4 mass market. I usually try to get an even split. It doesn't always work. Now, we're on to our next deck. This is the Journey to Oz and Wonderland Tarot. This is by Mystic Madness Tarot. It was a Kickstarter indie deck as well. It also has additional cards. And yes, it's Wizard of Oz and Alice in Wonderland mixed up. It's actually quite a fun deck. I love it. As you can tell, not exactly the most aesthetically pleasing next to each other. They're pretty different, but they work perfectly. Why? Because this is another deck that shares the same strength as the Magical Dogs, but also the same weakness as the Magical Dogs. So it's kind of nice to have that as both, just to see what extra information you gain from utilizing both at the same time. So if you can't get a hold of a copy of the Wisdom of Pooh, try this one. Or if you can't get a copy of this one, try getting a copy of the Wisdom of Pooh. I know Serafina and Angel are doing their Tigger 2, so it's their version with Tigger in it. Now that Tigger's no longer copyright, that is actually active on Kickstarter at the time I am filming this, and will be all month long, so you can actually get a copy of that. Alright, our next deck is the Stardust Wanderer Tarot. This is Jen Sansky's deck. Now this one has gods, goddesses, demigods, space pirates. It is definitely not in the realm or anywhere close to the Magical Dogs Tarot at all. So this is why I warned you that sometimes It's not about the artwork. It's not about the aesthetics. It's about the energy. And these two don't share the same strength or the same weakness. It's nothing of the sort of why these two work. Believe it or not, Magical Dogs Tarot is a Divine Masculine deck. Now, Stardust Wanderer is a Divine Feminine deck. And these two, despite different themes, being completely aesthetically different, as you can see from these two cards I'm holding up, they balance each other out. That's why these work, because instead of clashing as a Divine Masculine and a Divine Feminine deck, they actually balance. They create a type of harmony or synergy, and they work. All right, I have one more indie deck to show you, and then we will move on to our mass market. All right, this one's a little bit different for an indie deck. This is the Fantasy Garden Tarot. It's another Kickstarter deck. This one is a pip deck, number one, but it's also made with ink ballpoint pen. So it comes in with like 6 or 7 different colors of ballpoint pen, and that's how it's drawn. So the medium in this particular artwork is a little bit different. However, both of these decks have the same strength. They both deal with shadow work. And some decks, unfortunately, will reject a pip style deck. And you will find variants of that with any deck, but these two share the same strength. So the fact that the Fantasy Garden deck is a pip deck, the Magical Dogs Tarot is okay with it, which is kind of nice. All right, we're gonna go ahead and jump into mass market. Here's one that a lot of you will probably recognize right away from the backings, especially when I flip it over, because this is the Tarot of the Mystical Moments. And I do hope you can fully see that without any glare, but as much as I love the Tarot of the Mystical Moments because it has both genders for the kings and you get extra cards, like I said, aesthetically, very different. Tarot of the Mystical Moments is kind of, I guess you could say, a unique art style. And as much as the Magical Dogs could reject it for the weird artwork in the Tarot of the Mystical Moments, this is another one that's like the Stardust Wanderer. This is a Divine Masculine, this is a Divine Feminine, and they balance each other out. They find their own common middle ground and synergy simply because of those divine aspects being equal. Which is something I did not expect. I figured these two decks would probably just kind of agree to disagree and ignore each other, but no, they actually get along just fine. Okay, moving right along, and we're kind of flip the script a little bit in theme. This is the Crystal Visions Tarot, which is what, Jennifer Galasco? Right? Oh, Galasso, there you go. I left the information card in there. Oops. Anyway, here's the backs. This is not a new deck. It's actually a reminiscence of, 90s fairy artwork. It's actually, I think, a 2011 deck. Yes, from US Games. Once again, not about the artwork. It's about the energy of the deck. I confess I was expecting this deck to get rejected by the Magical Dogs because it does have dragons in it. It does have fae in it. So just because it has that energy, I wasn't sure it was actually going to pair. And yet, these two work out quite well. And it wasn't until I started looking at the strengths and the weaknesses of both that I figured out exactly why they click. And it's because they share the same strength, shadow work. On the same note, however, they share the same exact weakness, which is self-care. Now that I say that, and I showed you more than one deck that has the same strength and the same weakness as the Magical Dogs, that does not mean that I won't feature that deck. That also does not mean that the deck that I say that has the same strength and weakness as the Magical Dogs doesn't have an additional strength or an additional 2 weaknesses. Decks can vary. It's not always a one-to-one, 1 strength, 1 weakness. So just because I give you part of it doesn't mean I give you all of it. So if you're interested in this deck, don't write it off. If I put it up on the poll or any of the others I've mentioned, go ahead and vote for it, simply because you could be surprised with more from that deck than what I've already stated. Okay, now we're really going to change it up because I'm going to show you a brand new deck. What do I mean brand new? I mean this is one that was a pre-order that just got released. This is the Once Upon a Time Tarot. This is a low-scale Baroque deck. And it's a mixture of all sorts of fairy tales. And in fact, I still have it in order for you, just to be nice. And as you can tell, the aesthetics, once again, are not equal. They are not the same style of artwork at all. But these two work, and it's not the fact that they have a lot of overlap. It's actually the fact that they share the same weakness. They don't do self-care. So just for that, they share a little bit of common ground by what they don't do instead of what they do. So how they interact on the table together is a little bit different simply because of that aspect. All right. Now we're going to go in reverse. I'm going to show you another mass market that you guys are probably very familiar with. Just by seeing the backings, you probably know this is the Forest of Enchantment or Tarot. This is a Lunia Weatherstone deck. Oh, and I love that. The Seeker of Challenges. The Knight of Sword. Sorry, I always get the Monte Python and the Holy Grail, 'Tis But a Scratch moment every time I see this card. I can't help it. I fully expected these two decks not to get along simply because the Forest of Enchantment is my Earth element deck. It is very strong in Earth. I mean, it is all over the deck. It's really hard to ignore. And there is other creatures in this deck. So I wasn't for certain between, you know, non-humans and heavy earth energy that these two were actually going to get on together. But this is the same case as the previous one I showed you, the Once Upon a Time Tarot. These two actually share the same weakness. They don't do self-care. So because of that, they're able to find at least some common ground and manage to interact. Alright, my lovelies. We managed to get through all 8 decks fairly quickly. And I will list those in the description box down below, along with the other complete list of decks that I found that pair perfectly with the Magical Dogs Tarot, or you can watch the previous section in the description box down below. There'll be a link to it as well. Alright, my lovelies, I'm going to go ahead and leave this here, and I hope to see you tomorrow, because we're going to cover Perfect Pairs Oracle. So, if you have any oracles in mind that you would like to actually see with this deck, and you want to know at least a starting point of what actually does pair with it already, tune in for that video, because that is what we're tackling next time. Alright, my lovelies, I'll hopefully see you then. Bye.